Hello and welcome to the screencast on table splitting in the Entity Framework. This is one of a few blog posts and screencasts I put together on modeling in the Entity Framework. If you're wondering what table splitting is and why you might want to take advantage of it inside of your applications or in your conceptual layers, I've got a table here. You're probably familiar with this. This is from Northwind. It's the employees table. And if you take a look here, you can see we've got, basic employee information, last name, first name, title, etc. If you look down a little further, you can see you've got a photo column, and that's actually an image data type, and that can get quite large. Now, if in your application you may need to access a photo periodically, but that's not the normal case, you may consider creating two entities that are sourced by this one table. So you might have an employee entity as well as an employee photo entity that has this photo in it. So when you need to access that, you can take advantage of lazy loading or even explicit loading or even eager loading to fetch that photo when you need it. But when you don't need it, you're not paying for that payload to go across the wire. Now, the other maybe less common use case is you've got some information in a table that you may not want to provide to all consumers. Think along the lines of like credit card information or maybe social security numbers or something like that. Something that you may not want to provide to everybody. You can also use table splitting to take advantage of that. So with that, let's go ahead and build out a model where we've got an employee type as well as an employee photo type. So to do that, let's go ahead and add in an ADO.NET Entity Data Model, and I'm just going to call this Northwind Model. Good to go. Generated from the database. I'll choose my Northwind connection. I'm going to name this Northwind Context. That's going to be the name of my context here. This is kind of an odd bit of metadata there. Now let's choose our employee table. And the model namespace is appropriate. I'm going to let it singularize, in this case, my employees down to an employee type. And I'm going to include foreign key columns in the model. Although I'm not bringing back more than one entity, I won't have any relationships generated. Here is my employee type. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and Control-C and Control-V to copy and paste it. So I've got a copy of that employee type. I'm going to rename this thing to employee photo. And it doesn't do the best job of pluralizing that, so we'll fix that. Now we've got employee photo type. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of the properties I don't need. So I'm just going to keep the key, and I'm going to keep this photo. I'm also going to keep the photo path. For whatever reason, there's a photo, which is an image type, and then a path, which is an nvarchar, which is just actually a path out to a photo on disk. We'll split both of those off into this type. Now I'm going to delete those from my employee. So I'm going to get rid of the photo and the photo path. Good. Now this entity is not mapped to my employees table. So let's do that. I'm just going to choose table mapping, and I'm going to choose my employees table. Now because the property names line up with the columns in the table, I get automatic mapping here. I don't have to do any additional work. It makes it really easy for me. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to create that one-to-one association between the two of these. So I'm just going to choose Add Association, and I'm just going to set it to be a one-to-one association. And now we need to add in our referential constraint. So I'm just going to choose my employee as my principal, and we now have the keys line up here. My principal, the employee ID in my employee type, and the employee ID in my employee photo type. And so now we have this one-to-one relationship, and we're actually done with our table split. And we can go ahead and Control-Shift-B to make sure that everything's built, and we can write a little bit of code to consume this model now. So let's do that. Let's do using, I think I called it Northwind Context, and we'll just write a real simple bit of code here. Let's just say, let's bring back the first employee. Context.employees.first-or-default. That's great. Now I can just write out to the screen. Let's just write out the employee's last name. And let's also write out the employee's photo. That's what I call it, employee photo. Let's just do photo.length. And we'll write out the length of that photo. And then let's just do a console.readline here. Okay, now before I run this up, you can see I've got Profiler running. I got a little trace going. And let's go ahead. Actually, let me start that. Good. And let's run this. So you can see we got Devolio, and the image is 21626. Now let's take a look and see what went on in the database. This is the interesting part. Now you can see two queries were run. The first query, when I went to get the original bit of data, you could see a query was run without returning the photo and photo path. Now, when we went to access that employee photo type, you can see an additional query was run because lazy loading is on by default in the entity framework. The photo and photo path was fetched from the database, and that object was hydrated. Now that's great. We've got lazy loading on by default. If we didn't have lazy loading and we weren't taking advantage of it, we could have used explicit loading. Or if we knew we wanted to consume that bit of data, we could have used eager loading. So let me show you how you can do that. If I wanted to eagerly load this, I could have just said context.employees.include employee photo. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and now, if I run this up, let me make sure I cleared the trace. I have. Let's run this up. Same result, but if we go ahead and look inside of Profiler, only one query was run, and this time the photo and photo path were returned in that original query. So we are able to take advantage of any kind of loading we want to, eager, lazy, explicit. Table splitting doesn't push us in any direction. What it does allow us to do is give us that flexibility of not returning, say, those large fields when we don't necessarily need to consume them. So I hope this has been of help to you. Please stay tuned for a few more resources. As promised, here's a listing of some additional resources you can take advantage of. If you go out to deveducate.com blog, on the right-hand side of the page, there's a tag cloud. You can click on Entity Framework 4 there, and you'll get a listing of all of the blog posts that are Entity Framework related out on deveducate.com. You can also look for an index blog post, and that's got some links out to some other blog posts I put together out on robbagby.com, as well as a bunch of screencasts I put together on either YouTube or on Channel 9. Also take a look at deveducate.com training. We put together an online training course called Understanding Entity Framework 4. Now, while that's not free, you can sign up and get access to a free module. And that's the first module in the session, and it's about an hour and a half. It's a broad sweeping overview of the Entity Framework, Entity Framework 4, and it'll give you some great background. So just go out to deveducate.com, click on the training, click on View Details, and you can see this Watch a Module for free. I hope you take advantage of all of these resources and look forward to talking to you soon.